Welcome to HSDF the Podcast, a collection of policy discussions on government technology and homeland security brought to you by the Homeland Security and Defense Forum. In this first of a three-part series, Eric Hysen, DHS CIO and Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, and Dimitri Kusnezov, Undersecretary for S&T at DHS, explore new roles and responsibilities emerging in AI. Hear how DHS is using AI to revolutionize FEMA's disaster response, crack down on illicit trafficking, and amplify productivity in child exploitation cases. It's about real-world outcomes, dramatic rescues, significant busts, and landmark convictions. Featuring Eric Hysen, Chief Information Officer and Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, Department of Homeland Security. Honorable Dimitri Kusnezov, Undersecretary for Science and Technology, Department of Homeland Security. Luke McCormick, former CIO, Departments of Homeland Security and Justice. This discussion took place at the HSDF Technology Innovation and Government Symposium on February 22, 2024.
Dimitri, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you take us back on, the yellow brick road, if you will, over the last year, and just kind of walk us through the top line of the various activities that have brought us to this point here today, or maybe up to the executive order. How about that?
Do I have to identify where the witches are?
Yeah, of course you do.
Flying monkeys? No, look, it is a fascinating time to be in this conversation. It's an important time. And, it's this balance of remarkable challenges and remarkable opportunity that fosters innovation if you're willing to lean into problems. And, rolling back the clock just a little bit, we started this administration with the president's vision, I think articulated well in his stand-up letter for OSTP, and I think the 5 or 6 areas that covered AI as well as other technologies. And it started really on day one, and it's been pushed through. The EO, the executive order, is the latest manifestation. I know Eric is embedded deeply in that, and we'll get into that with us shortly. It's us and its allied partners. You think of the UK's Safety Summit, their partner agreements. There's international teaming on key problems. So at the meta level, it is a conversation that is being led by this administration, but also it is global. When you look within DHS, I think we are very lucky to have Secretary Mayorkas there, who is personally passionate about AI, driving it hard. He stood up the AI task force, among other things. He has personally invested in this. Eric and I co-chair this, and it is one of the organizing principles, but one of many things. It's the one that's perhaps the most visible, but we're deeply embedded in that, and I know Eric will also get to some of that. And then down the third tier, I think, is science and technology. The role of science and technology in my main hat is to provide the support to the operational components and first responders, but it's also to look beyond horizon, to help with things that are not being operationally pulled today, but things we should be thinking about. What is coming down the pipe? What is happening in the world that gives us pause, where steering technology and innovation could help us be more prepared for a more uncertain future? And so it's this nexus of remarkable alignment, even on the Hill, that is a moment in time that we should really be happy about. It is perhaps one of the few bipartisan things that everyone is interested in because it stimulates economies in every state, across every economic sector. It is a power. And for my lens, for DHS, an organization pulled by operational need, AI is and the emerging technologies that accompany it are the only force multipliers I see for attending to the demands of the mission. And it is an important place for us to lean forward and push hard.
Appreciate that, and thank you for setting the table. We're going to have a little contest here. I'm throwing a little surprise on you. Whoever gets this right first, free bag of coffee from LJM Roasters. What does 37 have to do with this subject? 37 times DHS is cited in the executive order. Pretty impressive. And so what does that tell us? A lot of moving parts going on there. And I'm going to ask Eric to kind of take us from this executive order forward. But before he does that, I thought I'd ask you, can you explain what is the role of the AI executive officer inside of DHS? Is it a dual role? How much time are you spending advising the secretary, the executives, et cetera, the interagency versus sort of all things internal DHS AI?
Yeah, thank you, Luke. And yeah, thanks to everyone for being here. It's an important point that it really is a dual role and a unique role at DHS. So there is what you read in the executive order and then what you read in the draft OMB memo for the responsibilities of a chief AI officer in a federal agency, which are, as you said, really focused on managing AI innovation and responsible use and risk within the department. That's incredibly important. We're going to talk a lot about that. And that is a significant amount of my time. But I am also at and this is the unique at DHS, I'm also spending a good chunk of my time on supporting the secretary, working really closely with our Office of Policy on our responsibilities, those 37 items under the executive order that look at our role in promoting nationwide AI safety and security. We are charged through CISA with setting standards for AI system cybersecurity and evaluating the risks that AI can pose to critical infrastructure around the country. We are charged with combating AI-generated child sexual abuse material and AI's use in child sexual exploitation activities online. Our Office of Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction is charged with writing a report on AI's impact on chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. And then the Secretary is standing up an AI safety and security board, which will bring together leaders in industry, critical infrastructure, academia, and others to, modeled on the success of our Cyber Safety Review Board, give practical guidance to critical infrastructure on the safe and secure adoption of AI. And so I think unique to DHS is the fact that we think that our own internal use of AI, the fact that we are a 260,000 person agency that is going to be using and is already using AI in so many parts of our mission, our experience doing that responsibly internally is inherently going to make us better at all of those external AI safety and security mandates. And so I'm working on sort of the intersection between those two things and how we can leverage our own experiences to support that external work as well.
A lot of moving parts going on over there, and we really do appreciate it. Dimitri, how about Eric talks about the safe use and can we talk about the strategy, the guardrails that we often hear around AI and the strategy around that, the use of that? What does that look like, and what's your role in that?
So, it is a very big landscape there. What responsible use touches us in many ways. So one of the functions we have is in test and evaluation for acquisitions. It's pretty open-ended in terms of new tools that are coming. Everything is going to be inherently smarter. It might not be in a bit of code. It might be embedded in the hardware. It might be in a more complex system. Responsible use is not a simple operation you apply on it to see if it does what you think it does, because the ways things can fail is just open-ended, and it can surprise you with some of these systems, what is normal and what is off normal conditions. So we're thinking deeply about test and evaluation because we do have to do that for all major acquisitions. AI standards. There are things, the NIST risk management framework is a good starting point, but it's fairly general. And when we think about the needs for AI in the department, I do believe that we're going to have specific needs on standards refined to the use cases we have, which are very unique, very specific. We're an agency that touches more citizens than any other agency every day, millions of people. Any technology we deploy that has a front-facing look has unique responsibilities that you don't get necessarily from just a commercial product. And so understanding how things can fail through the lens of our agency is an interesting challenge. It's emergent, and it's going to take a lot of work, but that's another place So test evaluation standards. As part of the task force, Eric and I set up also a responsible use working group. In fact, we had a call right before this one, and I was surprised Eric made it so quickly. So I knew he lived close by because we got off the call, I got in the car, and there he was. It's like, and so, you know, we're trying to get our head around a very complex issue that doesn't have any solution, but you know when it's gone wrong. And so that's kind of the landscape we're working with here on a lot of these technologies that we're starting to understand and explore. Some are not as critical when you're doing a law enforcement action where you have all of the authorities to look at all the data in any way you want. You don't have to worry about that as much because you're covered. But for other things, we have to be more aware of what it means to the citizens that are impacting these things. So it's a work in progress. But it's important to the department, and certainly the secretary cares about this quite a bit.
Definitely, we're in this. Please, if you want to add on there.
But I think the point that you made on responsible use is so critical, and I just want to highlight it's also one that we need help from industry on. Use of AI in Homeland Security and law enforcement missions can be controversial and can be scary to some people, and for good reason, right? The actions that we take as a department can make profound impacts on people's lives, and if we are using AI and other technologies in ways that are not held to the highest standards, then we should have those authorities and abilities to use that taken away. So when we're working with you on our own, on the technologies we're building out, what we need is explainability, right? We need to be able to show how AI systems are making decisions, particularly when those impact people's rights and safety. We need transparency and interoperability so that we're not interacting or taking a black box system and just saying, trust us, the algorithm said this. And then we need strong testing. Dimitri talked about test and evaluation. And we need to be able to share those test results so that we can reassure the public that we are taking this as seriously as we are doing so, and not just say trust us, but give them the data to back it up.
I guess a couple things. Bring it down maybe a half a notch here. I think you both would admit that we're at the early stages, right? It's an absolute greenfield of activity that's underway. 37 different sightings inside of the EO, as we mentioned. You recently made an announcement that you're going to hire 50 folks, and didn't go unnoticed, various skill sets, right, up and down the stack, as I like to call it. I guess a couple of questions on that, twofold. One, is this the first 50 of 500? Two, are those folks sort of working more of the internal? Is the intent that they would work more of the internal DHS activities versus some of those broader issues that the executive order calls on DHS to be responsible for?
Sure. Well, I think you have a recognition in the EO, it's an entire section of the EO, that tech and AI talent in government is going to be critical to our own use, but also to our ability to effectively regulate and ensure nationwide AI safety and security. And so, and that is one of the most robust sections of this EO. It's an area that the White House are really closely focused on. Our intent in setting up this DHS AI Core that we launched earlier this week is to follow some of what we learned when you and I stood up the U.S. Digital Service team at DHS in my introduction to government now a decade ago, which is crazy to think. Really acknowledging that we need an influx of talent, but also that we don't know the permanent way that this will be structured long term. That we need talent now. We need flexibility in that talent. We don't want to wait for the budget cycle to complete to add 10 positions to every agency or office. And so we said we're going to kick off this 50-person hiring effort modeled on what was successful with USDS, looking at really pretty senior level talent coming in, leveraging OPM's new direct hire authorities for AI talent, running a streamlined hiring process that is based on subject matter expert evaluations. And then we're going to get them all into my office, again, just for ease of processing, and then farm them out across the department as needed. So people that come in are going to have largely be working on those internal efforts like you talked about, like our efforts to use AI to combat the flow of fentanyl into our country, to take on child sexual abuse, some of our efforts on streamlining disaster grants with FEMA. But I think I'd also expect that this cadre will have an ancillary impact on our external facing work, but the focus is really what we're doing on our mission.
And I would imagine that's, Dimitri, I don't know if you want to chime in here, is it also to work on some of the testing and some of the things that, is that part of the core? Because it seems like, 50 isn't gonna spread to...
So 50 is augmenting a workforce that has been busy doing this for a number of years. So don't think that it's new. It is not aspirational that DHS is getting into AI. DHS has a remarkable record, and I think is perhaps the most advanced operational agency in government in terms of already deploying it because the mission demands it. It is fundamentally a really hard problem across any of the components. The problems are just vastly complex, and AI has been drawn into it. And there are all kinds of figures of merit you see. Taking some of them just from last year as I looked at some of this, in child sexual exploitation, our ability to extract content from the dark web, the streaming content, and understand features to do voice, natural language processing, to do text, multi-language. There was a 50x improvement in productivity in generating cases from 4 a year to 4 a week in one of the offices. And so it was something you could have attacked by surging people, but it was done by technology. And the information we get out of that in terms of the complex networks of people, the traffickers and pedophiles, is far richer than what was happening in investigations. With transnational criminal organizations, bulk cash laundering, what took 10 financial experts 3 years to do in 2019 is done today in a matter of days with these kinds of tools. It's night and day. In air and marine operations, as we track all of the things happening in this country, in air, in the water, drones to commercial to private, we went from 500,000 tracks a year last year to more than 100 million that we can track with the same people, and a 300% uptick in targets of interest leading to seizures. So we mark the success of AI not in contracts or spending, but in terms of number of kids rescued, number of drug busts made, number of interventions, number of convictions, and metrics like that are real. And I would say DHS is ahead of the game. We have experts embedded across the organization that are working hard and have been. And the augmentation will provide more of a critical mass to attack these and do even more, because the problems are not getting any easier.
Thank you for tuning in. You can follow HSDF the podcast on any major podcast platform. Visit hsdf.org to learn more about the Homeland Security and Defense Forum.